Well, good morning once again, and welcome to another day of our Radiant Word Devos on this beautiful Wednesday morning. I'm Pastor Dustin. So good to be here with you guys today. And we are in Genesis still, and we're in the chapter 32 today. You know, over the past few days, we've been learning about Jacob and kind of his struggles and his finding wives and process of just kind of building up his flocks and his empire, so to speak. But he's come to the point where he feels like he needs to separate from Laban, kind of take his family, and God tells him he's going to bless him and take him back to the land of his forefathers. And so he's on his way back, and he learns that Esau, his brother, whom he kind of betrayed early on in his life and stole some stuff from, is on his way to meet him. And so he sends out some spies to check it out and see what's going on, or just some servants even, and they come back with a report that Esau's got 400 men and he's on his way to meet Jacob. And so Jacob kind of freaks out a little bit and starts to send out some different gifts and flocks and things that he hopes can kind of appease Esau's rage that he assumes is still burning against him. And I don't know if you're like me, but you know, I grew up in church and grew up hearing a lot about these different stories in the Bible. And when you're young, you just kind of, you know, take it for what it is, and you think, you know, that's cool. But as you get older, I found that, you know, the more you read into these things, the more incredible the stories become, and just even the more alive and active they become for your lives, and things you can glean from them. And just right out of the gates, you know, one of the first things that jumped out at me in this chapter is the very opening verse 1, opening line, where it says, "As Jacob and his household started on their way again, angels of God came to meet him. When Jacob saw them, he exclaimed, 'This is God's camp.' So he named the place Mahanaim." And you know, it just seems like no matter where Jacob goes, God's with him, and God is alive and active and involved in this story of redemption for Israel. And even this is the chapter where we see God renaming Jacob, giving him a new name of Israel. And then just later on in the chapter, you know, as it goes through all these, kind of sending out the herds and the flocks to meet Esau, you have this little passage tucked in towards the end of 32 where Jacob actually wrestles with God. And you know, think about what an incredible experience that would have been. And the more incredible thing is the fact that Jacob was holding his own against God, and as God came down in man flesh and man form and human form. And I find it so kind of interesting and even comical almost that, you know, once God realizes that this is not going anywhere, then he kind of just pulls the God card and touches Jacob's hip and knocks it out of socket. And so I'm not going to say, you know, this is the case, because God can do whatever he wants, but it tends to be like God fights a little dirty sometimes if he needs to. And so I found that interesting, where he knocks out Jacob's hip socket. But the cool thing is Jacob doesn't even let go at that point. He's still holding on for dear life, and he won't let God go until he gives him a blessing. And that's where God asks his name and renames him as Israel. And so, you know, it's encouraging for me that, you know, no matter what we're struggling with, if you just hold on to God's promises. Even throughout the chapter, Jacob is quoting and praying God's promises back to him about, "You're not going to let me perish, because you told me that you're going to get me through this and take me back to the land where my forefathers are." And so hold on to God's promises for your life. Even when it feels like you're wrestling and kind of struggling with life and things that are going on, God's there. He's present in your situation, and he wants to bless you, and he wants to help you through it if you just hold on and don't let go. So God bless you guys. Have a great Wednesday, and we'll hopefully see you next week.